Hey everybody, welcome to Celebrate Longmont, the new channel for everything Longmont. Welcome to the show Celebrate Longmont, where we celebrate all things Longmont. And my guest today, I should say my name first, Matthew. I'm the host, and my guest is Ron Gallegos, who's a former councilman. And we've kind of developed a conversational relationship over the past few years.
Yes.
A joint interest in Longmont. One of the things I love about Ron is he is a visionary.
Thank you.
Yeah, so he called me the other day and he's like, hey, I'm interested in serving the community, perhaps, again. So today we're just going to chat about maybe your vision for Longmont. And
also your vision.
My vision, yeah.
Equally, for me anyway, is an opportunity to go out and solicit people and find out what they're thinking.
Okay.
What the pulse is right now. Because, I hate to be that old proverbial parade analogy where the parade is moving, but I wasn't paying attention, and now the parade is left on him at the end. So
like Santa Claus?
Sort of like Santa Claus.
Well, the parade is not over till Santa Claus goes by.
There you go.
Anyway, so Ron, is it true that you're perhaps considering running for council again?
There is a vacancy, and I am putting a committee together right now, and I will be launching my attempt to get elected to council again.
Okay,
This
wonderful.
is a short-term vacancy. This is what happened is the mayor got elected. She moved up, and her spot has 2 years left on it. She had a 4-year term, and the mayor has a 2-year term. So that's vacant now, and now we have to have a special election, and so we have to have some candidates. And
that is in April, you're telling me?
That is April 5th.
April 5th. Okay, so mark your calendars, April 5th.
It will be a mail-in, mail-out ballot, like you traditionally have gotten, so you'll be getting something in the mail.
Okay.
And then you should be getting some information from time to time for my campaign or for me in the mail, because right now there's probably no other way to communicate with folks.
Okay, I noticed that you have a Facebook page, you still have a website.
We're putting up a new website. We're modifying our old website.
Okay.
Making it up to date.
And what is it? What is the website?
It will be ronforcouncil.com.
Okay, ronforcouncil.com.
And right now we have that little thing that says it's under construction. It's a little man with a hard hat.
Yeah.
So maybe by this time next week it'll be up and running.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Ron.
I am one of those rare creatures. I am a native of Colorado.
Okay.
But actually mine was one of the first Spanish families in the state. So we're one of the first families in the state, about 1830.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by training, I went to CU, married to an attorney here in town, and am in finance. Do a lot of lending. Had done a lot of residential lending. Now I do a lot of commercial lending, things of that nature. So, work with hard money lenders and with bank programs and SBA and da-da-da-da. Now that I put you to sleep. But if you want to start a business, give me a call. I can help you through creating a business plan, getting an idea of where you want to go. Because I like when people get into business and they say, I want to borrow $1 million. And I say, well, do you have your business plan? Huh?
What's a business plan?
Yeah, really. Do you have projections?
Okay.
Huh? Yeah. So it's good to figure out what you're going to do so you know when you're there, when you've arrived.
When you've arrived, yeah. Yeah. So speaking of arriving, so if you get elected to city council, what is the main reason that you're running for council, and what would you like to see happen in Longmont?
In 1995, I was on council for one term. And when I got elected, I said I had a list of about 11 things I wanted to accomplish.
Okay.
So I think it's important if you're a council member to have a plan. Mm-hmm. To be fair with people, this is what I'm about. And in those days, we didn't have a rec center. In fact, we had 3 previous elections where the concept of a rec center failed.
Wow.
So that didn't happen. The museum in those days was probably a space of less than 400 square feet.
Wow.
So really, the museum in those days consisted of a lot of Quonset huts where we stored a lot of stuff, but you never saw it because there was no display space. We really didn't have a building. And then the senior center was getting a little long in the tooth. It was getting a little old and needed to be remodeled.
Was it in the same place?
Same place.
Same place, okay.
But we,
Roseville Park?
yeah, we were able then, when we did the initiative to build a rec center, to build a new museum, and to remodel the senior center, and it was important because they had a real limited kitchen, and Meals on Wheels is headquartered out of there. There's a public-private partnership.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So yeah, it made it really hard because they were
So they needed
had
better
little
space.
little stoves and maybe some firewood in the corner. I don't know, but it was really tough. So now it got much better, but the community continues to grow. So one of the things I have is probably again 4 or 5 things that I'm interested in, but really this notion of sustainability, it's really kind of popular right now.
Yeah, it's a buzzword.
It's a buzzword.
Yeah.
Most of the emphasis is on environmental, but there is another component, and the other component is kind of a financial component. What is the economic health of the business community, which is the economic health of our community.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have jobs, we don't have sources of income, we don't have commerce, the city kind of grinds to a halt and stops. We've been fortunate in the past that we've had a lot of high tech, but I think from my perspective, we're so close to Rocky Mountain National Park that it's an opportunity for Longmont to become a tourist destination. And maybe we do that from a lot of planning where we get tourists to come in. And the nice thing about tourism is they come in on a Wednesday or Thursday and then they stay through Sunday. We run them up to the park. They go up to see the bus. We come down at night and they go to our restaurants and stay in our hotels and we pick their pockets. I mean, they make contributions to our community. But then they get on the airplane.
Legally picking pockets,
Legally
right?
picking their pockets. Then they get back on.
Enticing them to use their
Enticing
money
them
here.
to,
Yeah.
well, I think we want to give them a good environment,
Yeah.
which means I think there's lots of opportunity for us to develop the community. One of the things I've been kind of pushing is we have a lot of focus on downtown, but I think there's a lot more we could be doing. If you're in Spain and you have tapas, the idea of going in Spain and eating tapas is you go from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant. So if we had a pedestrian mall, say from 3rd Avenue to 6th or maybe to 9th, and closed it off.
That's a big idea Ron has here. Big idea.
We could then recruit art galleries, restaurants, entertainment, so that it became an end destination. Bearing in mind, we've got 3 great sites for parking today that are surface parking. In other words, they're parking lots. The other part of my vision is we need to really address affordable housing. So we could have a public-private partnership where we built long buildings, high buildings, multi-story buildings, where people could buy a condo. There could also be a retail component on maybe the first couple of floors, and we could do the parking either on top, on the bottom, or internally. So we've got 3 spaces. That would again add to the nuance of downtown, but create kind of a synergy. So if you
They all work together.
They're all working
Yeah,
together.
All work together.
Which means that you can then begin to address transportation. And those of you that are familiar with Loveland, there's a couple of streets that go north and south. Well, there's no reason that we couldn't maybe talk to CDOT and relocate our designation as a state highway, put it on Airport Road, and then change the 2 streets, Kaufman and Kimbark, so that they're north-south streets. They then channel the internal traffic, the traffic that really wants to be in downtown Longmont. And those folks that want to go to Berthoud or to Wyoming or Montana, wherever the heck they're going,
Just through, yeah.
points north, could go all the way up Airport, which is almost 95% finished. It ends at 17th now. Let's put a link around the lake and let's hook it up to 66 so that we have another viable option in terms of a bypass.
And you've had this idea for some time.
I've been talking about this for a while. And,
Yeah.
my understanding from talking with folks at CDOT is if we can make a viable transportation improvement, there's nothing sacred about the designation of where the highway is today.
Okay.
Highways sort of like our rivers, they occasionally move. So let's...
That's interesting. Yeah. Highways are like rivers. May I quote you?
Yeah, well, now that we've just gone through a flood, we've seen, what happens to the river. And
They can change.
It changes
yeah,
the
rivers
courses
can
and
change,
whatnot,
and
yeah.
certain events can change the river, the course of the river. Yeah.
Sometimes you bring in the Corps of Engineers, and they help you change.
Help you change. Yeah. So one of the things I think about cities is it's like there's a gravitational pull, right? And you think of think of a planet or a sun. The bigger it grows, the more gravitational pull it has.
Right.
And I think we need to see more of that in our downtown, our city. We need to have more of a cultural pull. If you were to compare Longmont to a city like Boulder, for instance, there's not a lot of foot traffic on any given night in downtown. There's way more in Longmont than there was in the past. I mean, 2009 was pretty sad, but after the Great Recession.
I can remember I had some friends from Chicago, and we were going to Boulder, and this was about 7:30, and the lights were blinking, on Kaufman. They had turned the lights red, and this fellow said, well, what's going on? Why are all the lights blinking, and why are they red? And I said, well, we've put the town to bed.
Put the town to bed, yeah.
And he didn't understand the concept of the traffic lights change because there wasn't in those days, in 2008, 2009, much activity downtown. Yeah. I think it's getting better, but I think we have an opportunity to create what I call a postcard moment. Right now, people go to the park, and maybe on the north end they stop and buy gas, or maybe they run into Walmart and buy junk food to eat in the car all the way up to Estes. But they don't really come into Longmont, so they miss the opportunity to wine and dine here, to see the sights that we have.
There's certain things, I've talked to people, over the past 2, 3, 4 years, I think, and one of the things is kind of stuck is this whole gateway signage project. I mean, we have very few gateway signs. If you could go straight from 66 all the way to Estes and never know you passed Longmont, because we literally don't have any signs that say Longmont, right? So that's something I think I know there's things underway, and that's good, but it needs to get done.
No, it really does. Which means
because we're missing out on. I mean, Longmont should be the gateway to the Rockies. That's how. If I were to be in charge of visit Longmont or something, I would say, hey, we need to bill ourselves as we're the gateway to the Rockies.
Well, and we're so close also, not only to the park, but we're so close to CU, CSU, and Greeley. And most of those, Boulder does not have one more inch of space left for conventions or activities of that nature.
Right.
Fort Collins is in a similar fashion, and so is Greeley. So I think there's an opportunity for us to create tourism, but also maybe build a convention center, partner with a hotel to build a big multi-story Four Seasons or a Ritz or something, and do it along the river corridor so that we can do some thoughtful planning.
Yeah.
I'm not for paving all of paradise, but there may be a couple of miles that could be economically viable.
Yeah,
I think they could be thoughtful.
Yeah, I think we don't want to change. We don't want to change the character of our city, and we're not going to.
No.
But if we need some resources in our city to be competitive with other communities, I feel.
I think, and from my perspective, these are like quality of life instances. These are things that we can do to bring us and make us go to the next level. It's nice that we're an all-American city, but we are so close to Lyons, and we are so close to all that shale, all that rock. It would be interesting if we had an initiative where we begin to develop an architectural nuance, a style downtown, sort of like CU has this Renaissance style in buildings. We could have sort of Santa Fe. Santa Fe is cute because it has an architectural nuance and a style. And whether or not you realize it, it's artificial. The city fathers in the early 20s were really suffering. New Mexico has always been poor, but they figure, we have all these people, all these sites, and people want to come out here. We should create, our kind of our own brand. and they did it by mandating that commercial buildings all had to have a certain southwestern or Santa Fe style architectural footprint, and it works. So I think there's things we could do. Let's take advantage of us being so close to Lyons and some of the natural attributes there, and we could put a lot of the facades on their facing. So I think it's important also. Here's what sustainability means this, not only making sure that it's an attractive place for businesses to want to locate and do business here, but it should be an attractive place where people want to live. And I'm not sure the solution, I think the solution really should be to work and play in town as much as possible. So I'm not sure a train to Denver is the answer. I'm not sure a Musk spaceship to Denver is the answer.
Musk spaceship to Denver.
Somebody in the last campaign was talking about partnering with him and creating these little pods or something that would shoot along the interstate.
Oh, wow. I remember Kyle Clark was saying, like, when the whole thing went down to RTD in Longmont, and he said the moon's going to get a train before Longmont will get a train, which I think is a shame.
Well, and we're paying lots and lots of millions of dollars to that project, and we're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
So I've been saying we should get aggressive with RTD. Tell them we want our money back.
Give us our money back, yeah.
Yeah, if nothing else, we create our own internal RTD.
Yeah.
And maybe buses are free and seniors can get across town.
Yeah, enough of this, people pushing Longmont around. I mean,
right.
You got to teach people how you want to be treated,
So,
especially larger municipalities.
Yeah, well, or other forms of government. Just because we're here in the northern part, they kind of get us. And
yeah, I'm really pro Longmont. Like, that's the big thing. Like this whole show, I want to be like, it's not about Republican Democrat. It's about Longmont. It's like, hey, let's celebrate Longmont. Where do we want to go as a city?
Right.
And I like to think big. And one of the kind of driving thoughts I have is like, where do we want Longmont to be in 50 years, 100 years? And that's where we should start thinking, what do great cities do and what do great cities have?
Right.
And
right.
I think if we think that way, then it's not a matter of we're thinking too big or we're dreaming too big, or it's like, what do great cities have? And we talked about, I know there's initiatives to get performing arts centers going, convention centers, just things like that. And I think that's
development along the river corridor.
Yeah, and that's exciting. There's, I know, two organizations. I think the city's behind something, STEAM, but then we also have the Longmont Performing Arts Initiative working on a performing arts center. And I think those sort of things are on. I think it's like, let's just plan on doing it. Like, let's just plan on doing it. If it takes 10 years, 20 years, I would like to see it be shorter and quicker.
Right now, from a finance perspective, money is as cheap as it has ever been. So we could go out and, through the bonding authority of the city, bond a lot of this money and do a public-private partnership, like with Four Seasons or somebody, and build a beautiful center, convention center with gardens, maybe, an outdoor amphitheater so that we could have Shakespeare in the park.
That's huge. That's so important.
Gardens, we'll get beautiful gardens in the summer. There's lots of things we could do and take, again, advantage of the fact that we're so close to the park. And it's people move here and love it because, I always try and convince my friends from California that, they need to buy a shovel and lots of parkas because it snows so much here. And you have to have sleds and sled dogs. And because I really want them just to come during the summer but then leave. But having said that, there's some tension. Lots of people would like Longmont to be the way it was in 1970. Well, folks, I think that train's left the station. It's not going to be that way. But as what you said, where we can be thoughtful, and I think that's where my experience in the past, having been on council, having been on the Planning and Zoning Commission, having been on the Board of Directors of National League of Cities, having been on the Board of Directors for the Colorado Municipal League, I bring a lot of on-the-ground experience there. So you're not, having to teach me a lot of tricks, because this old dog has a lot of tricks.
That's good.
And we've been there and done that,
So if you're I like that. If you're an old dog and you've already learned the tricks,
Right.
if I could say that,
You could actually
learn the tricks before you get there.
spend less time training. I'm already party broken, trained and whatnot, And kidding aside, I was involved in that council, and I actually went to Toronto and saw what they were doing when they were talking about broadband and doing the cable.
Wow, yeah.
And that was 95. And then for whatever reason, we sat on it for about 10 or 15 years, and Comcast then got nasty and wanted to take it from us, and we put up a good fight, and now I think we got Nextlight, and it's just wonderful.
So
I have it at home.
you're
And
partially responsible.
well, that council was. It wasn't my initiative,
yeah.
but I came back and said, guys, hey, other communities are doing this. We should do this,
And we were like, Longmont was one of the first, or
One of the first in the country to do it.
Yeah. And it's a great resource right now,
We did the same thing. We had an opportunity to acquire Sandstone Ranch, and we did. We said, well, we need additional parks. I think one of the measures I have is the health of the community is measured in terms of how much we have in terms of park and the ability for recreation and whatnot. Mm-hmm. We're probably, from my perspective, and just listening to people out there, at capacity in terms of our rec center. In fact, to be honest,
probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think the day we opened it, it was antiquated. Unfortunately, in those days, Lafayette had just finished the Burger Center, and Lafayette in those days was about 15,000 people. And we said, oh yeah, we need a rec center like Lafayette. Well, we were already 40,000 people, and we're past 40,
Yeah.
So we probably need another rec center or two. And, my chosen spot right now, or favorite, is Garden Acres. We don't have to acquire any real estate. There's a big presence there. We've got it there.
Yeah,
So
that's a good idea.
That would be an opportunity. So
yeah, I think what you were saying is like we need to provide these resources in Longmont, because if we don't, people are going to go somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
And that's like my thinking. Young people will go find what they want to find. Why shouldn't they do it here in Longmont? Whether it's sports, arts, entertainment, nightlife. Why don't we music venues And so I think Longmont needs to think that way. Like we need to think that way. I think it's important.
Well, and like you say, there are other communities that are waking up, and if we don't do it, they're going to do it.
Yeah. If we don't build a performing arts center, Loveland will. If we don't build a convention center, Loveland will.
Well, Loveland's already got one.
Do they? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, but we need to be able to. If we don't have them, we can't compete.
But ours could be a little bit different, more in terms of having a hotel on site and having the amenities, having a performing arts center and maybe an art gallery or an art center at the same time, lots of meeting rooms, and create a hub, so a lot of activity can take place there, not only for tourism but for the community as well. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So those are the things that I think we should be thinking about and talking about. Mm-hmm. Because if we look, the last maybe 3 or 4 councils, the big watermark, mixing my metaphors here, was the flood. But we haven't really done anything since the flood. That's not to say that the city hasn't gone on. We've made some improvements in wastewater. We've made some improvements, with the dams and whatnot. And those
the bridges, reinforcement, everything.
Those are important.
But that's really, if you think about it, I think we talked about this a little bit before, but people can get into kind of a just a management kind of marking time sort of thing.
Right.
So that's really is reactionary, because we're having to spend resources on something that happened that was bad, as opposed to going on the attack as a community and say, where do we want to be in the next 50 years? And you can push a lot of paper around your desk, or you can go make things happen. And I think as a community, we should be leading the charge through vision.
My office is in the first bank tower there, first on 17th and Main, and we're on the 4th floor, so we can look out there. And my wife has a beautiful, like a 360-degree windows on all sides. Anyway, at 3 o'clock on 17th and Main,
oh yeah,
it's like World War III. The traffic is just unbearable.
Okay.
And it's north and south, but it's also on
bad.
17th that it's really getting bad. So it's you talk about maintenance. Well, yeah, we can add 3 or 4 little parking spots downtown. That isn't going to cut it. We really need to deal with parking and the transportation issue. And like I say, where we can drive incentives so that people can live and work in town and celebrate downtown, celebrate the community here. We don't need a train. We don't need spaceships. I think we need to concentrate.
I think I debate there. We need spaceships.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to see them in my lifetime. So I think those are the things. So right now I'm kind of doing a listening campaign, talking to people, telling them what I think that I'm about, but really wanting to ask them, do we have enough library books? Do we have enough opportunities in the arts for young folks? Are there things we're missing, And the school is now adding an aquatic center. That'll be one good thing.
That's exciting.
I
think, we get into sports. I think Longmont should own one sport. Like, I don't care if it's swimming or rugby or something, or ice hockey, lacrosse. Like the city, like Glendale, actually, they built a rugby stadium. And they have, I think, semi-professional rugby leagues, and
they play a lot of soccer
broadcast.
too.
And I think that's where, I think, it's important for leaders, like, to get in public office, to be like, hey, let's do something as a community.
Yeah.
Let's own something so we can, move vision forward and give children, young youth, an opportunity to be involved in something bigger.
Well, and I was on the site selection committee of the golf course years ago. So we started when there were just empty ground, and we looked 3 or 4 sites until we finally settled on that site and settled on the golf course developer that we got. But yeah, I think there's some opportunities, and there's some additional opportunities that, there was discussion of about a hockey rink and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition. But just because it didn't happen one time doesn't mean that we couldn't, tee it up again and maybe look at it. But as long as we have the viability and the community is healthy, there used to be an indicator years ago. There was a study called Envision 2020. Mm-hmm. That's how old I am.
Oh, wow.
And we were looking at what it would be like in 2020. Well, now we're 2022.
You were past.
I'm going to have to pull out that old document and dust it off and see what we were planning.
Yeah.
But some of those things have come to pass. Some of them we didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And some of them we're now stuck with. Transportation is a real big one. Affordable housing is a big one. Affordable housing is one of those things that, yes, we need to have all the open space. But remember, every inch of open space it means that maybe there's less regular space. Not that I want to build apartment houses from here to New York, but we have to have, I think, a viable means of housing people in the community. And $1,600, $1,800, $2,200 a month for a person making $12 an hour just isn't going to cut it.
No.
Those people are having to move to Kansas almost to commute into Longmont to work on a daily basis.
Right.
And, that's...
People move out of town if they can't afford to live here, yeah.
It's crazy. Well, and I'm having people who tell me that, they've lived and they've paid their house now, and they wanted to retire in Longmont, but they don't know if they can stay because suddenly the taxes are very high on their house. It's appreciated now. Everything is more expensive. Such is the nature of the beast.
Yeah, so affordable housing is important, yeah.
It's big. And workforce housing is a big issue right now. So, we could mandate that all the policemen and the fire people and whatnot and all the city employees have to live in Longmont. But right now, they couldn't afford to live in Longmont because the real estate is so high. Mm-hmm. So unless we had a program, some incentive, so that the city helped them acquire something, so then we could mandate that they have to live in town. Because I think, from my perspective, the fire and police personnel should live in their community. And I think the people who work for the city should live in the community. If you don't buy into the city, you kind of wonder.
So interesting. Yeah, so you kind of want people to have skin in the game, so
Skin in the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. Interesting. Yeah. Well, Ron, is there anything, this has been a good conversation, and I hope to talk to you again sometime soon. Is there anything else that you haven't said that you'd like to tag on?
I just, from my perspective, we have an opportunity to add somebody who has some business experience, who has had some government experience, because we get a lot of now. It looks like the last couple of cycles, council people who've never been on any boards or commissions, who really don't kind of understand what they got themselves into. So the first thing they want to do is meet less frequently in hopes that the problems will go away.
Oh.
And they're not going to go away.
Well, yeah, you probably need, like in a city, probably need a healthy mix of,
I think you do.
yeah, to get a balanced view on the whole community. I think council should represent the large breadth of, the community.
But let me say, I'm no stranger to the neighborhoods.
Okay.
I used to be president of the neighborhood group leaders when we had 7 organized neighborhoods. And I think the last count is there were 42 now.
42, wow.
So, yeah, so.
Okay.
And I was liaison to the library board and the police department and whatnot, so.
All right, well,
Done my time.
Ron for city council.
Thank you. I'd like to earn your vote and trust and respect.
Yeah, well, hey guys, thanks for watching today. It's been a good conversation. Don't forget to celebrate Longmont. And if you'd like to chat with me sometime, somebody who's passionate, crazy about our town, I'd love to hear from them. So you can follow us on Facebook, Celebrate Longmont, and on YouTube channel, you see our latest videos. So God bless you, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Matthew.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to our channel by hitting this button here or watch another video.